we could say the similar sort of statement about the Mariners and the way they ended their season. I know, obviously, the way they ended it in that game in 18 innings was tough, but there's in a similar way, a lot of young talent on a team that, the Seahawks can add more talent in a lot of ways, whether it be young or old. The Mariners added some veteran talent in the offseason. Again, this is, oh, wait, we already did the last week, but some sort of re-signings and such, and some coaching staff information, which one move I didn't necessarily expect. So on the 10th, the Mariners announced their 2023 coaching staff. Obviously, Scott Service returns as the skipper for the ball club, but you'll see there Stephen Vaught will join the coaching staff. Two changes to the coaching staff for 2023. Before we get to Vaught, Trent Blank transitions to the major league coach and director of pitching strategy, while Vaught, a former player, you can see there in his photo from his last game as an Oakland Athletic, where he homered in his last game, is hired as a bullpen and quality control coach. Now, if you don't know, Vaught actually lives in the state of Washington. He calls Olympia home, and so the Washington resident gets to join the Mariners ball club. Something that the former 10-year veteran gets to do. He gets to stay around the game of baseball in a coaching role. Otherwise, the rest of the staff remains the same. Manny Acta stays at third base. Tony Arnerek is the hitting coach. Jared DeHart joins him as a hitting coach as well as the director of hitting strategy. Perry Hill, the great Boone, is still the infield coach. Christopher Negron is the first base coach, former player of the Mariners. Carson Vitale, Major League field coordinator, and Pete Woody remains as the pitching coach there. So kind of cool to see a former player join the staff, and especially someone who's a Washington resident to join the Mariners staff there. It was really interesting. Vaught had a really interesting career. I don't know if you get the chance, Bell, you go watch his last homer as an Athletic. As his last game, he homers, and in the photo here you can kind of see it, but he's rounding the bases and he's like skipping with joy. It's a lot of fun, and it just kind of seems like you think about this Mariners team last year, right? And you cover it, you being part of our coverage this last year. I don't know if how much baseball had played a role in your life, but you think about how much fun this locker room and this team had been, and you just kind of add a guy like that. You think they're going to enjoy themselves next year, even more so. Hopefully, right? Hopefully longer into the season. Another guy who had some fun and was part of that game that we just talked about with the LDS Game 3 in this photo you can see here. Felix Hernandez, the king himself, will be inducted into the Mariners Hall of Fame, becoming the franchise's 11th member in the month of August during the season. Felix Weekend will take place August 11th through 13th. On the 11th, there will be a post-game fireworks spectacular. On the 12th, he will be inducted that night. And then the following day, on Sunday, he will be given, he won't, maybe he'll be given one, probably. The game will be a Felix Hall of Fame bobblehead giveaway. Felix, with the way that this team struggled, not this team specifically, but the franchise struggled when Felix was there. It was really tough, right? Because somebody maybe I liken it to is Damian Lillard in Portland. The Mariners didn't make the playoffs, obviously, but you think that it was like Felix could have gone anywhere he wanted during the prime of his career. Yeah, I mean, there was obviously the perfect game, which is still the last perfect game to take place in Major League Baseball. It's always kind of funny to see Mariners fans wonder if that's going to happen again whenever someone gets close to it. Just unbelievable loyalty to the city and this franchise. Whether it, there were so many games where Felix would be pitching a gem and they'd give him little to no run support. And there were even games they would lose because of the fact that Felix didn't get that run support. And he's just someone who is so deserving of that. And it's really cool to see not only Ichiro have it last year, but then Felix get it this year as well. So really, really awesome to see Felix be inducted into the Mariners Hall of Fame. That was somebody that I grew up watching. And I remember being there for the last night that he pitched. The last night that he pitched, and it was really emotional. He didn't have the best game necessarily, but it didn't matter because it was just about Felix that night. And to have him as the first pitch thrower for that game, I know a lot of people were like, bring back this guy and this guy and this guy, like guys like Seager that were there throughout that time. There was nobody else that deserved it more than Felix. um, in my opinion. So that was
I
really
think
cool to
that
see that.
yeah, I think that picture gives so much emotion just because I mean we were there. We saw it happening. We saw him walking out onto the field there, and I think the press box is going to need more tissues when they do induct him because there were tears, guys. So there are going to be definitely more tears that weekend.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was. I had heard. I think one of our friends told us that it was going to be happening, and it only made the most sense. So that was really awesome, and it'll be really great. I'm sure there will be more happy tears when August rolls around, um, and that induction takes place. So we will continue on here with arbitration. Arbitration, we go from a fun topic to a not so fun topic. The Mariners did agree to terms with 3 players to avoid arbitration. First baseman Ty Francis, you can see him peeking over there. Paul Sewald and catcher Tom Murphy, as Tom is pointing towards Paul in these photos here. Just so we can go over it. In case you don't know, arbitration is kind of is an interesting sort of thing with baseball. The players that do not reach arbitration go to meetings and hearings where they essentially uh, now will get a third party will decide how much that player gets paid. And so it's kind of like it's a contract thing in baseball. I don't have the fullest grasp of it. I'm sorry, I can't give that to you entirely. But these 3 players that we'll show here next will now go to hearings. And it's just interesting knowing that some of these players, I think with Teoscar here, it was only like $2 million off. And he's a guy that you just acquired this offseason. I wouldn't want to disagree with him on a little bit of money, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So the 3 players that the team did not reach agreements with were Teoscar Hernandez, Diego Castillo, and Dylan Moore. So now those 3 will go to hearings and will be given a third party will determine how much money. I think I actually have a great breakdown of it, so I'll look at that. But it's not something that you want to necessarily get into and deal with. Just considering the fact that you want to keep these guys happy. I don't know. Obviously, there's a whole thing with it, but there's a hearing, and the third party will determine how much money they get based off of market value and sort of things relating to that. The arbitration case could decide the winner between the 2 amounts, whether it's the amount that the player wants and the amount that the ball club wants. It has to be decided within a week, so the hearings would start this upcoming week. So that'll be taking place, and it's kind of important in terms of how much these guys are paid and kind of happiness, but
Yeah.
just
And
unfortunate
they
to
have
see
to
that.
reach an agreement in that time span?
Third party will determine it, whether
Mhm.
based on a bunch of things. So we'll hear about it pretty soon, and we'll probably go over it next week. But again, I just would have liked to avoid that happening at
Yeah.
all, right? So good to see it happen with a guy like Ty. You want to see a guy like Ty extended, but like a guy with Teoscar, you don't. You just acquired the guy, right? So
Right.
not ideal. And better news. On the 15th, the team signed 7 international prospects, 2 of them who are highly, highly regarded. The first name was like the best international prospect on the market, seen here pictured in a dugout. So the Mariners signed 7 international prospects. Shortstop Felnin Celesten out of the Dominican Republic. Outfielder Kevin Alcantara out of the DR. Infielder Delfray Carrasco out of the DR. Catcher Sebastian de Andrade out of Venezuela. Right-handed pitcher Kendall Meza out of Nicaragua. Right-handed pitcher Rudy Navarro out of the DR. And outfielder Kay Robles out of the DR. We'll go over some brief information about these guys. So Celesten is a 17-year-old and is widely considered to be one of the top prospects in the 2023 international class, and is rated as the number 2 overall international prospect by MLB Pipeline, number 3 by Baseball America and Fangraphs. He's 6'1". He's a switch hitter shortstop out of Boca Chica, Dominican Republic. Is regarded as a 5-tool player with a dynamic skill set and a high ceiling. Great athleticism, above average speed, and some great raw power. Who does that sound like? I hope you know who I'm talking about. I don't want to just say that.
Yes,
I'm going with
our other
Julio.
DR guy.
So this was a guy that a lot of there's a great follow on Twitter if you love our Mariners. It's Mariners Minors. He's a great coverage of the Mariners minor leagues. He's been counting down, he or she or they, my apologies, I don't know their identity, has been like counting down the days until signing day, which is today, with just photos of Felnin, and then and just tweeting out the day. So the Mariners get it done.
That's
He was
awesome.
highly regarded really well. We'll go to some brief reports on some of these other guys. Alcantara is also 17. He's 6 foot, left-handed outfielder out of the DR, one of the best gap-to-gap hitters in the signing class with some solid defensive skills. Carrasco's a 5'9 infielder who has some solid versatility to play several positions along the infield. At the plate, he's a kind of an on-base guy. Carrasco, I just said Carrasco. De Andrade is 16. He's 5'9 as a catcher from Venezuela who is praised for being one of the more aggressive hitters in this class. He's got some good defensive tools behind the plate. Meza is a 6 foot right-hander out of Nicaragua. Power pitcher, already sitting in mid to low 90s at 17 years old at his fastball with a chance for high-end velocity in the future. Pitches with up-tempo aggressive delivery and a solid breaking ball. So some high heat and some solid breaking. That's scary. I'm kind of glad I don't play baseball anymore. I couldn't hit any of that. Navarro's 16, 6'1". I wish I had that height. Right-handed pitcher out of the DR. He's a good athlete who relies a lot on that fastball and changeup while he's working on the development of a slider. To finish it off with Robles. Robles, the oldest of the group at 18. He's 6'2" as an outfielder out of the DR. One of the bigger athletes in the class. He's a unique athlete with above average speed and surprising raw strength, who is projecting as a center fielder with tools for that specific position. So just a little bit of minor league. They're technically not in any minor leagues yet, but a minor league
Right.
sort of preview here before we reveal something later in the month. I don't want to say anything yet, but just keep an eye on that. I know that we do our pro teams, but we're working on stuff. So that's exciting. Celesten is a guy that, again, I talked about it with Mariner Miners that really, really excited about. And this is the thing too. I know he signed like a $4 million signing bonus. So they were really making sure that young man's life has changed. His family's life has changed already. Right. But you think about it, right? I know that people have been upset with the way that this team didn't. There's a guy that I'm looking about in league notes right here that people are like, oh, why don't you throw him some money? You look at these 10-year deals, even the 6-year deal. Think about Celesten, right? Bell, who knows how old we're going to be when he hits the league, right? And he wears Mariner uniform. I mean, Julio was only a few years ago that this happened for him. So who knows? Maybe it is in 2 or 3 years, right? Depending. You don't want to compare, right? But it's like you think about the way that this team is built. How was Julio acquired, right? He was through the international signing class, developed, got through the minor league system. I'm actually looking at his Everett Agua Sox card right now. Went through the system, and now he's this big guy, and he's the future of this franchise. So it's I have confidence in the organization, the way that they develop players to that extent, just because of it seems like there's already a great. Cal Raleigh was a guy who was kind of sitting in the low A to mid A kind of ball, and he even in Everett, what was it? What did our friend Kate call him? Oh shoot, corn-fed Cal. These guys are all it's drafts develop, develop them. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it because that's what you want to do, right? Would you rather be a team that sells out and sacrifices all of this like short-term stuff and win in a short period of time, or sustained winning? Like a team like the Packers, or franchise like the Packers, or franchise like the Spurs, how they've done it, right? Right now, the Warriors. You look at the Warriors. I had some gripes when KD went there, but look at Steph, Clay, Draymond, even I think Jordan Poole, right?
Yep.
How are those guys acquired? They were drafted, they were developed. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not worried about it, and I'm happy that Felnin is in the franchise now. So happy with that. Guy that I'm also happy that he didn't join the team. The Carlos Correa saga ends, I hope. January 10th, Correa signed a 6-year, $270 million deal with the Minnesota Twins, the team that he opted out of a deal with in the first place at the beginning of free agency. So here's a timeline for you, because I know you've been seeing this in the notes as well. On the 7th of November, he opted out of his deal with the Twins. On the 13th of December, he agreed to a 13-year, $350 million deal with the San Francisco Giants, which is just the beginning of that's ridiculous. 13 years. Come on. December 13th, he agreed to a 12-year, $350 million deal with the Mets. Reportedly, both the Giants and the Mets used the same doctor to get the physical for Correa. The Twins said, "I don't care, come back." On January 10th, he agreed to that deal with the Twins. So just kind of wild, and I'm hoping that I don't have to see more of those headlines again. He can go and sit in Minnesota and in purgatory with that team. So just your weekly reminder that pitchers and catchers report on February 16th for our Mariners. So, hey man, we're getting pretty close. You remember here in
Mhm.
center field by John Fogerty every day, and the press box ice cream and sounds of woods hitting bats. We're getting close, Bell. We're getting close. We're almost there.